So recently I made a video talking about butterfly effects in my life. Very minor small decisions that drastically improved my life. All of those examples were positive impacts. So I figure it'll be a good video topic to talk about some L's I've had in my life. I've had viewers contact me via either Instagram or the comments here asking how I got to where I am today. Now I am by no means a fantastic success, yet, but I believe I am well on my way. I have the dominoes set in place, which is the hardest part. Now I just need to put in the work week in, week out for a few years and let time do its thing. Come back in 7 years and I'll be in the top 1% of people in my area. Guarantee. But I've had some L's in my time that caused major setbacks to my life. Although these were good lessons, they were very, very easy to avoid, and these L's may not be lessons for you, as they're applicable to my specific life, but you may very well learn from these mistakes. I am going to go over 4 massive L's I've taken in my life, and then in the next video, I will go over another 4 L's. So let's begin this video already. L1, being born. L2, high school classes. So in high school, okay, I'm kidding. But let's get more serious on L1. L1, being born into my situation. So I am grateful for my life. I have it so good here, being in a first world developed country, which is Australia. We have some tyrannical leaders, absurd housing, the classic Western society, which is not a good thing. But overall, we have it fantastic here. I've seen the conditions that my cousins are living in the Philippines. No livable wages, rubbish everywhere, living in shacks. Every Australian is living in better conditions than that. So I am thankful for the opportunities I have. Regulars will know that I work 2 jobs, 7 days a week, weekdays at the office, weekends at the supermarket. Many people find this absurd. There's several reasons why I do this, but one of the reasons is I am taking advantage of an opportunity presented to me. Throughout university, I worked at the supermarket. As the years went on, I got better at the job, other staff left, so naturally I was first in line to replace those shifts. They signed me to the contract so they could guarantee those hours, and those hours just so happened to be on the weekends. Yes, I had some contracted night shifts during the weekdays, but they were easy to replace once I got my full-time gig. But I could still work on the weekends. No one forced me to, but I stuck with them. I took advantage of the opportunity of being able to work weekends. If I was to quit, I'd struggle to get these sort of guaranteed hours back. Although in one of my recent vids, I talked about the ease of getting hours at a bar, these hours will be spread across smaller shifts at night, not so much full-day shifts on the weekend. Even if I was to leave the supermarket for a month, drop my contract, then come crawling back, I wouldn't get these hours back since my hours are kind of just put there because I'm guaranteed the hours due to my contract. I likely wouldn't get the 1 to 10 Saturday back if I ditched it. Maybe I'd get something like 1 till 6. The 8 to 5 Saturday might also change to 11 to 5 or 11 till 4. They do need some of the hours I do, just not all of them. In fact, we are technically overstaffed Saturdays. It usually works out well since Friday night staff usually don't get all of their stuff done, but if it was up to the store, I wouldn't have 18 hours per week. But guess what? Years prior, I signed these contracts, so now they're stuck with them. I took advantage of an opportunity presented to me. Okay, so what's this got to do with L's? This sounds like a W. Well, the L here is the fact that I have to work 7 days a week to be on a decent wage until my career pay picks up. More so, the L is being in Australia in the sense of housing. It's bad in other countries too, but the median wage compared to median house cost is probably the largest gap here in Australia. They use average wage in the statistics, but this gets pumped up higher artificially due to our lower population and higher pay for miners and politicians, for example, as well as our high minimum wage. The average wage is not indicative of the average person, so this is an L since I need to work this second job to get into real estate. And you need to get into real estate here or you get left way behind. The L here is not being born into a rich family. Story for another time, but basically we're poor and we're a big family. As much as I cherish my siblings, and as great as it was, as a kid having someone to play Smash Brothers with, it's a bad financial move having a large family on lower income. This also means I don't have any financial assistance from my parents, since there's 4 more of us to spread that across, and as I said, we're not exactly rich. If 2 middle/higher income earners had 1 kid, that kid would have a nice easy safety net behind him/her/it, since both parents have money and there's only 1 child to take care of. Not in my case. I can either continue on the path I'm on or get left behind. 2 simple choices. So that's the first L of this video, the fact that I'm not a spoiled brat who can leech off his parents. Now, to be fair, I'd rather this scenario than my parents handing me down something I can't change that is on the worst side, such as bad bodybuilding genetics, for example. I have pretty good abdominal insertions, pec insertions aren't terrible either. I have a narrow waist, and I think I have somewhat wide clavicles, although I believe most, if not all, of my shoulder width is attributed to pull-ups and rope upright rows. Not to say you can't have a good physique without these attributes, but I can get away with being smaller overall and still looking good. Although I struggle to put on muscle while some others have no issue with it. So there's another L. I struggle to put on muscle. Although I have good structures, it's harder to fill out. Someone else may have a bad genetic structure to work with, but their parents are so wealthy that they don't need to work a second job. Hell, maybe they don't even need to work at all. Although I enjoy work, and it gives me purpose, if I had the choice, I'd work less and be supplemented by rich parents. But I could talk for hours and hours on this topic about how everyone has different circumstances, so let's move on. L2, high school, in general, I guess. I went into this thinking I was going to talk about how in year 12 I dropped my accounting subject. I eventually became an accountant. And how I didn't take year 12 super seriously, and how I could have set up my entire life better, but I'll briefly talk on high school being a walking L. Year 7 was a boring year, nothing too exciting. We had our homerooms and I had my primary school friends in the class, so at least we had that. Year 8 was either the worst or second worst year of my high school career, if high school is a career. Barely any fun, interesting subjects, basically no friends in any of the classes. My only 2 main friends during recess and lunch sometimes weren't there. Was always a lost day whenever that happened. We just talked about Pokemon the whole time. Good times. One of those friends even made his own Pokemon game online. It was pretty solid. It was like a very base design of Pokemon Showdown, and this was in 2010. Pretty sure Pokemon Showdown didn't exist back then. Unfortunately, that didn't get super far as he got hit with cancer again in the following years. He had cancer as a kid, but he beat it, but it came back. And it was terminal this time. He passed away in 2014. I missed his funeral because the other friend of ours was supposed to tell us when it was. Was supposed to tell me when it was. But he never told me. Dimwit. I am still upset to this day that I didn't go to that because that friend was an integral part of my early high school years. Those 2 were basically my only friends in school for year 8. I had friends on the bus and whatnot, but I didn't see them during the school day as they had their own groups. I played basketball in year 8, but our team sucked. We were always bottom of the ladder, and that basketball situation was similar in year 7 too. Year 9 was my second best year of high school. I had friends in most classes. I had good teachers. I had easy fun classes like it was called like physical theater or something. It was like learning how to juggle and shit. I played basketball every single recess and lunch with the year 8s, which helped hone my basketball skills. As one of the seasons in 2011, the year I was year 9, we won the championship. We only lost 1 game near the start of the season, and that was when we were getting our team together. And we had literally 2 players and lost to the second seeded team. It's a long story that doesn't matter as to why we only had 2 players. The next season, our team's second best player got bumped up to the A's. I stayed in the C's as one of my close friends played in that team, and he wasn't good enough for A's, so I stayed in C's. The season we won, I was the league leading scorer by more than 100 points. Pretty sure I closed the season with 365 points across 20 games and 2 finals games. The following season, we didn't make the top 4 due to better teams and me basically being a one-man show, but I still closed the season with 273 points. So that was a fun year from a sporting perspective. In this year too, I also started my first 2 jobs as a basketball ref and working at the chicken farm. Year 10, I had a girlfriend and it was similar to year 7, some classes with friends, some not, some air classes, some okay classes, basketball was meh. I went up an age bracket and had a different team, so I no longer got the shots I used to. I also got my 3 other jobs before I was 16 in this year, so that added some flavour into this whole year. Year 11 was probably my worst year, that or year 8. No fun classes, I started to hate refereeing basketball. Looking back, it was probably due to being depressed due to the breakup. I was never diagnosed or anything, but the way they hand out diagnoses these days, I probably would have been given that label. At the very least, I certainly felt like it. Either way, was a shit year. Didn't really get anywhere. Would have been nice to start gymming seriously or working extra hours to save money. In fact, at one point this year, 2013, year 11, I almost got fired from my supermarket job. Story for another day. And this one day in particular, I was at the local milk bar trying to buy a burger for lunch. The burger cost like $11, and my card got declined. The lady running the shop let me have that as an IOU. I paid back weeks later, but her partner wasn't happy about it. Like, it's like a married couple who own the local shop. But like, card declining for an $11 meal? The struggle was real. In fact, another day in particular, I remember I had to split pay a $4 packet of M&Ms for my tea break at work. I had to use the remaining $3.85 in my bank account and a 10-cent coin and a 5-cent coin left in my wallet. So yeah, the struggle really was real. And this year, I also didn't get many shifts. Well, I didn't really want them either. And I spent heaps on random food, including a minimum of chips between bus trips. So yeah, money was a problem. Now it's really not. How times change. I'd also go spend every recess and lunch in the library with some friends. Felt nerdy. In fact, I'm pretty sure I did that all of year 10 as well. Year 12 was the best. I stopped feeling depressed. Hey, that rhymes. Had a good circle of friends. Sat outside on a designated table, which is like, that shows, I'm not a little nerd in the library anymore, and neither were my other friends. I enrolled in a Bludge Theatre Studies class at the local girls' high school. I went to an all-boys school. I don't think I've ever mentioned that on this channel, but I went to an all-boys school, and like a couple of blocks away, there was an all-girls school that was kind of related to us, so I enrolled in a subject there. So, met some new girls, which was great. In fact, this is the subject I chose over accounting. I picked a more social subject that has no benefit to my career over the subject that would eventually become my career. I had more free periods to just do whatever since I dropped accounting. I could have done both accounting and theatre studies, but I was way more on the lazy side back then, so I opted for more free periods. Started making noticeable gains too. Like other people would notice, which was flattering as I couldn't see huge differences. I think it was just due to gaining weight, to be honest, since they gauge you on your arm size in terms of how big you are. If you wear like a super tight, small t-shirt, obviously if you're a little bit on the chubbier side, your arms look bigger. So that's probably why they thought I was making gains. Or at least that's the style back then in terms of gauging people's gains. It was on their arm size. With the more social media orientated high schools now, I'd imagine there's more factors to it. This year, I also kind of had a thing with a girl at one point who I met in that theatre studies class, but that relationship lasted a week. Like literally a week. We're like 17, 18, and it lasted a week. You would think that we were in year 12, not 12 years old. So, whatever. Story for another day too. The whole camaraderie of being in year 12 as a group was fantastic too. All the boys were behind each other. None of this bullying nonsense that was present in years past. So, where's the L here? I didn't gym seriously enough. I didn't start something on the side of my studies, because that extra time would have made a world of difference. Imagine I started YouTube in 2014. I'd have an entire catalogue of content to refer back to when I'm talking about my progress in life. Now, I can't be too mad about this since YouTube wasn't really a massive thing back then. The idea of becoming a YouTuber just didn't exist back then. I dropped accounting, which likely caused some issues during the first half of my degree. It worked out eventually, but it didn't help. So that's my high school L. It didn't really ruin my future, but I definitely could have done things better. L3, the gym fail continues. So, I talked about how I didn't take gym seriously. Well, that kind of continued in my first 2 to 3 years of uni. Like, I did like going to the gym, but I knew nothing about training optimally or having a proper diet. A lot of years of wasted gains. Unfortunately, this was before a lot of good information was out there. I will admit though, there's a lot of impressionable young boys / men being roped into steroids or SARMs or whatever, and they don't even know about it, which is hindering their hormones and skin for years to come. At the very least, I just stagnated. I didn't completely botch my hormones, or my skin, for example. Now, briefly, steroids or performance-enhancing drugs can be safe if you have your dosages right and get blood work consistently checked, but that's not what we're here to talk about. Basically, I had this gym L, but the L could have been worse if I found the wrong crowd in this day and age, which is, the whole SARMs thing. You fuck up your skin. I don't know if you can ever reverse that. You probably could, but, it's not a fun time. At the very least, I just looked a little bit sort of skinny fat for a while, rather than having completely fucked up skin. I mean, I got bad acne, but imagine having bad skin on your body too. That is not ideal. L4, the collapse of the bachelor's degree. I've briefly touched on this in prior videos, but in 2015, I enrolled in 4 subjects in 2 trimesters. I passed them all. So now I passed 8 units at the end of 2015. In 2016 trimester 1, I enrolled in 3 subjects. I failed 1. In 2016 trimester 2, I enrolled in 4 subjects. I failed 3. In 2017 trimester 1, I enrolled in 4 subjects. I failed 3. The one subject I passed in 2016 was a class where you couldn't really fail. It was a general preparing your career thing. This is the class where I learned about picking an in-demand field, which is what I constantly tout on this channel now, and what led me to switching into accounting. We also learned about stacking your resume. I was told employers love when you have study abroad experience, so I found a program to enroll in early 2017. I only got in since there was 15 spots open and there was only 14 applicants. This is another butterfly effect I forgot to mention in my butterfly video. I just so happened to walk a different route to the library. For some reason I got curious as to these certain flyers, and that's how I found this. If it was advertised better, I wouldn't have gotten in since everyone else who had better grades than me would have applied. If I didn't walk that route, I'd have a more bland resume and would have struggled to get interviews earlier on in my career. But back to the point, I was in Denmark on this study abroad program when we got our exam results. They came out during our lunchtime. We were all sitting around this table since it was an electronics engineering type of program, like the study abroad program. But the point is, we were all basically in the same room when we got our results. Of course, everyone else passed all their exams, except for one other engineering student who passed 3 out of 4 and failed 1. When I told someone else I failed, he turned around from his other table and said, "I failed an exam too." And someone else goes, "No, he failed 3, referring to me." And he said, "Oh," and then slowly turned around and continued minding his own business. He didn't want any part of this. I just stared at my screen. People around me slowly moved away since they didn't want to be around this negative cloud, which was me. I wasn't being pissy to anyone, but it was clear I wanted no part of anyone else's chatter. Some other girl who stayed at her seat diagonally across from me said, "Are you okay?" after a little bit. And I quietly just said, "Yeah, it's fine." And then shortly after those results came out, I get an email directly from the university basically saying, "We don't think you're cut out for this. Get your grades up or we'll kick you out of the course. Going forward, you can only afford to fail 1 exam if you choose to do 3 or 4 subjects in the semester. And if you do 1 or 2 subjects in any semester, you cannot fail any of those exams or you will be removed." The next semester, I only chose 2 units to test whether I even wanted to continue my degree and to give me heaps of time for each subject so I don't fail. I take some time to reflect in the 2017 to 2018 holidays, which was the summer holidays here in Australia. a solid 5 months off to get my head right. And then I eventually realized what I want. 2018 is a massive turnaround year for me, and the rest is history. So pretty big L here. I could have graduated earlier, meaning I'd have more work experience by now, meaning I'd be on a higher salary right now. I wouldn't have blemished my academic transcript, so that poor transcript basically excluded me from any government graduate program or Big Four accounting firms, since they all look at your transcript. And I had to explain myself during the interview for my second job, since they asked for a transcript. I always hated when jobs asked for transcripts. It's just fortunate that the rest of my resume was so stacked for the second accounting job I've ever had that they were willing to overlook my bad grades in exchange for the experience I had. So experience trumps grades, but grades also help. So just have both. Don't do what I did and have to heavily rely on experience because your grades are so bad. So those are 4 L's I've had in my life. I was originally going to have all 8 of them in the same video, but then this video would have been super long, and I'd prefer if they were split for the sake of getting a video out, your attention span as the viewer, and it kind of pads out my video and view count, so no shame, #YouTuber. So if you think these 4 L's are bad, wait until you see what's next.
Fired.
I beg your pardon?
Fired.
But I...
It's difficult for me to say this, but you're fired! Actually, that wasn't so hard at all. In fact, I kind of liked it.